The day Jack Hawkins' life started to unravel like a cheap suit was also the day another tropical storm decided to throw a tantrum over Isla Verde. A former Marine Corps Special Ops guy, now the head ranger at the wildlife preserve, he was peering at the weather radar in his cabin, as usual. Little did he know, his jungle survival skills honed in South America were about to be needed for something far more dangerous than protecting rare critters. A game where the stakes weren't just his 15-year marriage to Rachel, but people's lives too. Another freaking cyclone, Jack muttered, staring at the screen. Third one this month. The weather forecast was cut short by the sound of a phone hitting the floor. Rachel, in a rush, had obviously left her smartphone on the kitchen table before heading to her shift at the port clinic. Jack picked it up automatically, and that's when the screen lit up with a new message. The sender's name made him freeze. Mike Ranger, counting down the seconds until we meet. My wild orchid. Tickets are booked. This time it'll be different. I'm taking you off that godforsaken island. You deserve a real life. Not some backwater existence with a guy who traded his career for messing around with animals. Jack slowly sank into his chair. Memories from 3 months ago flooded his mind. The Wild Adventures film crew, their charismatic host, so smooth with his travel tales, and Rachel, lively and laughing for the first time in ages. That's why she was so happy, he thought, scrolling further through their messages. That's why she started talking about moving so much 15 years ago. You know what I dream about? Rachel had been sitting by his hospital bed, thumbing through medical charts. Real adventures, like in the stories you tell. Jack, still pale from a recent injury, smiled. There's nothing romantic about real adventures. Believe me. Dirt, blood, constant fear. Still, she looked dreamily out of the hospital window. It's gotta be better than mopping floors in a San Diego clinic. At least it has some meaning. You want meaning? He took her hand. I know a place, an island off the coast of Costa Rica. They need people who'll protect nature, not fight people. And by the way, he gave her a sly look, they need a good doctor, present day. I can't pretend anymore, read one of Rachel's messages. Every time he talks about his animals, the preserve, I see he'll never change. To him, this jungle is more important than anything. Then why stay? Mike replied. You're a talented doctor, a beautiful woman. With me, you'll see the world, you'll be a star. Think about our show, Survival with Dr. Rachel. It'll be a hit. Jack gave a bitter chuckle. Occupational hazard, noticing details, spotting inconsistencies. Even now he could see the falseness in every line of this adventure hero. The sound of a jeep pulling up came from outside. Jack quickly put the phone back and returned to his papers. A minute later, Rachel burst into the house, shaking rain from her hair. Lord, what a day! She came to kiss her husband. Cruise ship came into port. 3 people passed out from seasickness. Then there was that family from Sweden with sunburn. And why the long face? Jack fought the urge to grab her shoulders and demand an explanation. 15 years of military training weren't for nothing. He knew how to wait. Just tired. He faked a weary smile. Hey, you remember that TV host, Mike Ranger? She froze for just a split second. Another person might not have noticed, but Jack was used to reading body language. That guy from Wild Adventures? Her voice sounded almost natural. Sure, he filmed a pilot here. Why? The network contacted me. Jack leaned back in his chair. They want to film a new episode here. Something special, extreme. Oh, really? Rachel turned away, pretending to be busy with the coffee maker. And you agreed? Why not? He carefully watched her reaction. It's good publicity for the preserve. Besides, he paused, I have a great idea for a location. Jack, no, she blurted. You know what's down there? What's down there? He raised an eyebrow. Untouched jungle? Unique predators? Isn't that what Mr. Ranger's dreaming of? Real adventures. But it's too dangerous. Rachel clutched her hands to her chest. There were incidents. Oh, don't worry, Jack smiled. I'll personally oversee the safety of our guest. By the way, why don't you join us? As the expedition's medic? I don't know. She looked away. I have a lot of work at the port. Come on. He stood and gave her a light kiss on the cheek. It'll be like old times. Remember when we dreamed of adventures? Rachel looked out the window at the raging storm. Somewhere deep in the jungle, a jaguar cried out, and she shivered. Jack! Her voice trembled. Maybe we shouldn't? Let's suggest another location. Why? He came up behind her, putting his hands on her shoulders. Are you worried about Mr. Ranger? Don't worry. His fingers tightened slightly on her shoulders. He's a professional. What could go wrong? There was such a chilling note in his voice that Rachel involuntarily shrank. But when she turned, her husband wore the same calm half-smile. I'll think about it, she managed. Of course, dear. Jack headed for the door. You've got till tomorrow. They're flying in next week. He stepped onto the porch, breathing in the damp jungle air. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled again, and in that echo he heard a sinister laugh. 15 years ago, he swore to protect this island and its inhabitants. Well, it was time to show what his years in special ops had taught him. You wanted real adventure, Mike? He thought, staring at the ominous clouds. You're gonna get it. Welcome to Los Diablos. Inside, Rachel's hands shook as she reached for her phone. Mike, she typed. We need to talk. I think Jack suspects something. Her finger hovered over the send button. Outside, another lightning flash momentarily illuminated her husband's silhouette on the porch. He stood motionless, staring into the darkness of the jungle, and something about his pose made her shiver. That's how a predator stands, sensing its prey. Rachel slowly deleted the message. She'd known her husband for 15 years, but she realized only now she didn't know him at all, and what was coming would be scarier than any tropical storm. Mike Ranger stepped onto the Isla Verde dock with the confidence of a man used to being the center of admiring gazes. His perfectly fitted khaki gear looked too new for a real traveler, and his polished boots looked like they'd never touched real dirt. A state-of-the-art backpack, crammed with the most expensive survival gear, swayed on his back. Mikey, honey? Producer Sarah Collins fidgeted with her tablet. I gotta ask again. You sure about this place? I don't like the look of this ranger. What's wrong with him? Mike turned, adjusting his shirt collar. Just a regular retired grunt. I've seen dozens of them. Tony, the bearded cameraman, snorted. Yeah, like that ranger in Yellowstone, who almost shut down our filming when he found out about the trained bear. Shut up, Mike snapped. That was different. I've got everything under control here. Under control? Sarah shook her head. Mike, I've seen the reports on this island. Los Diablos ain't no joke. People actually disappear there. Exactly. Mike's eyes lit up. Imagine the ratings. Mike Ranger challenges the cursed island. Besides, he lowered his voice. I've got a special reason for coming back. Reason as in the local doctor? Pete, the sound guy, joined the conversation. Boss, you're playing with fire. Her husband is a washed-up loser who traded his Marine career for playing with animals. Mike cut him off. And Rachel deserves better. She's a talented doctor. A beautiful woman. I can give her everything. Fame, money, a life in the big city, or a corpse in the jungle, muttered Tony. If her husband gets wind of anything. Gentlemen, a voice called from the jeep. Welcome to Isla Verde. Jack Hawkins stood leaning casually against the hood of a battered SUV. His worn ranger uniform contrasted sharply with Mike's stylish outfit, and in his piercing gaze was the professional interest of a predator looking at potential prey. "Mr. Hawkins," Mike stepped forward with an outstretched hand. "Good to be back." "Likewise." The ranger shook his hand a little harder than necessary. "I hope you're planning to stay longer this time? You were in such a rush on your last visit. Stuff happens, you know." Mike tried to rub his fingers discreetly. "Filming schedule, contracts. By the way, where's Rachel?" Jack smiled with his lips only. "Oh, she asked me to apologize. A mad rush at the clinic. But she'll join us later." The road into the island snaked between massive trees. The Jeep bounced over the potholes, causing passengers to grab onto the handrails. "Amazing place," Mike said, trying to start a conversation. "Must be never a dull moment here?" "Oh, you've no idea." Jack deftly avoided a fallen tree. "Something new every day. Just last week I had to track down some poachers. Funny story. They thought they were well hidden, but you know what gave them away?" "What?" Sarah leaned forward. "Expensive cologne." The ranger gave a quick look in the rearview mirror. "In the jungle, any artificial scent, it's like a red flag to a bull. Attracts predators." Mike discreetly sniffed at his collar. He generously applied designer cologne that morning. "And what kind of predators are here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Oh, all kinds," Jack shrugged. "Jaguars, pumas, caimans. But the most dangerous ones, of course, are in Los Diablos. Locals consider it a cursed place." "Cursed?" Sarah paled. "What do you mean?" "Just old legends." The ranger waved a hand. "About jungle spirits who punish those who come with impure intentions." "Nonsense, of course. By the way, that's exactly where we'll be filming." A heavy silence fell in the vehicle. "Listen, Mr. Hawkins," Sarah finally dared. "Maybe there are places calmer? We could." "Calmer." Jack stopped the car in a small clearing. "Isn't that what you came here for? Real adventures? Real danger? Or," he looked at Mike again, "does your star prefer working with trained animals? What are you implying?" Mike tensed up. "Oh, nothing special. Just heard stories about how your show is filmed." "Interesting stories. Are you insinuating something?" "Me?" Jack feigned surprise. "Not at all. Just sharing information. Professional stuff." At that moment, another Jeep pulled up from the direction of the port. Rachel hopped out of the car, radiant and excited. "Sorry I'm late." She adjusted her hair with a habitual gesture. "The cruise ship at the port, lots of casualties." "Oh, Mike. I mean, Mr. Ranger. Good to see you again." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world around them ceased to exist. Jack watched this scene carefully, noting every detail. How Rachel's fingers trembled when Mike held her handshake a little longer than necessary. How she bit her lip, looking away. "Well," the ranger clapped his hands, breaking the moment. "I suggest we start by testing our star's skills. How about starting a fire? Without matches, of course." "No problem." Mike put on a confident air. "Tony, camera over here. I'll show you a masterclass in survival." For the next hour, Jack watched with poorly concealed enjoyment as the slick TV host struggled to make fire by friction. Sweat poured down Mike's face. His hands were covered in blisters, but there was no result. "Need help?" asked the ranger when yet another attempt ended in failure. "We were taught in special ops." "No need," Mike snapped. "I can do it myself. The wood's just too damp." Sure. Jack squatted next to him. "You know the main problem city folks have in the jungle? They don't want to admit the obvious." "And what's the obvious?" "That they're outsiders here." The ranger picked up a dry stick from the ground. That all their achievements, all their fame, means nothing here. The jungle doesn't watch your show, pal. It doesn't care about your ratings, but it does care about you, right? Mike straightened up. Great defender of nature. Or maybe just a coward who ran away from real life to this godforsaken island. Rachel was about to intervene, but Jack stopped her with a look. You know what's most interesting about the jungle? He slowly stood up. Here, everyone sooner or later shows their true face, especially when real danger arrives. Is that a threat? No. Jack smiled, almost fatherly. Just an observation. Professional. Oh, by the way, he nodded somewhere behind Mike. That vine above you? Poison ivy. I'd move if I were you. The TV host jumped back as if burned, causing chuckles from the film crew. Rachel bit her lip, clearly torn between wanting to help and needing to keep her distance. Okay. Jack rose, glancing at the darkening sky. That's enough for today. Tomorrow at dawn, we're heading to Los Diablos. And Mr. Ranger, he smiled almost shark-like, I suggest you get some good rest. You'll need all your strength down there. That night, when the camp was quiet, Rachel slipped out of the medic's tent to the campfire, where Mike was sitting. You're insane, she hissed. Why did you agree to film in Los Diablos? It's not just a name, Mike. It's a truly cursed place. Shoo! He pulled her close. Don't talk nonsense. What curse in the 21st century? It's all marketing, baby. Local color for tourists. No, you don't understand. She looked nervously at the darkening jungle. I've lived here for 15 years. I've seen things. And Jack, he's acting strange. Like he's planning something. You're paranoid. Mike chuckled confidently. What can a simple ranger do? In a week, the filming will be over and we'll be flying out of here. Together. And if, she hesitated, if he knows about us, so what? He lifted her chin. You afraid your husband's gonna make a scene? Come on, he's all good, noble. That's what scares me, Rachel whispered. You don't really know him. In Special Ops, they called him the Ghost. He could track down any target. And he never acted directly. A low growl came from the darkness of the jungle. Mike flinched, pulling Rachel closer. That's just animals, right? Yes, she whispered. Just animals. But both of them knew real predators don't always growl. Sometimes they smile and offer a helping hand, waiting for the right moment to strike. In his tent, Jack lay sleepless, listening to the whispers at the fire. His fingers absent-mindedly stroked his army knife, and his mind replayed the map of Los Diablos, with the habitats of the island's most dangerous predators marked. Tomorrow, dawn over Los Diablos broke an unsettling crimson, like the sky itself was bleeding. Heavy clouds crawled over the treetops, promising another tropical downpour. The film crew, exhausted after a sleepless night to the accompaniment of wild cries from the jungle, stirred listlessly by the dying campfire. Damn island, muttered Tony, wiping his camera lens. Hey, boss, can we call it quits? We've filmed enough extreme stuff already. Mike, who was adjusting his hair in front of a small mirror, turned around sharply. Enough? He laughed nervously. Do you have any idea what ratings this episode will get? Mike Ranger in the most dangerous place on Earth. Good morning, travelers. Jack emerged from the undergrowth as silently as a ghost, making Mike jump in surprise. How did you sleep? I hope the local fauna wasn't too disturbing. Sarah, nervously clutching her tablet with the filming schedule, stepped closer. Mr. Hawkins, I wanted to discuss those screams at night. They were just monkeys, right? Oh, not just. The ranger sat by the campfire, stirring the embers. Howler monkeys, yeah. But there was another voice there, too. More predatory. What do you mean? Mike tried to sound casual, but his hands were shaking noticeably. A puma, Jack looked up at him. And a very big female. You know, they get particularly aggressive during the rainy season. When they're hungry. Quiet! Mike cut her off. Nobody is going back. Don't you get it? This is exactly what we need. Real danger. Real predators. Real. Jack smirked. Like that trained bear in Alaska? There was a heavy silence. Rachel, who had just emerged from her tent, froze halfway to the group. How did? Mike swallowed. How do you know about the bear? Oh, I did my research. The ranger stood up, brushing off his hands. You know what's interesting? In all 3 seasons of your show, there hasn't been a single incident of real danger. It's all staged, all fake. Shut up. Mike stepped towards him. You don't know anything. I risked my life in 5-star hotels? Jack shook his head. Come on, pal. I've seen real risk, real death, and you know the difference between us? When real danger comes, guys like you. He was interrupted by a horrible roar from the undergrowth. Everyone froze. A shadow flashed in the bushes. A huge cat figure, amber eyes, bared fangs. Puma! Yelled Pete, dropping his microphone. Lord, she's right. The predator pounced. Its massive body soared through the air, aiming straight for the center of the group. Mike, forgetting his heroic image, squealed and jumped back, knocking Sarah to the ground. Tony's camera went tumbling onto the earth with a crash. Take cover, Jack commanded, drawing his knife. Quickly, follow me. The bag, shouted Rachel, grabbing her medical kit. All the medicines are in there. Leave it. Jack pulled her away. Life is more important. The group ran through the jungle, heedless of the path. Branches whipped at their faces. Thorns tore at their clothes. Behind them came a guttural growl. The puma had started her hunt. I can't anymore, moaned Sarah, stumbling on another route. Shut up and run. Mike snarled, pushing others aside. This way. Jack pointed at a pile of rocks. There's a shelter there. They squeezed under the rocky overhang just a second before the sky erupted in a tropical downpour. The puma, losing track in the torrent of water, vanished into the undergrowth, but her roar still echoed in the ravine. Oh my God! Sarah sobbed. Oh my God! All the equipment. There's $1 million worth of material. To hell with the cameras. Tony, his hands trembling, pulled out his flask. We almost died. This is madness. Quiet. Jack raised a hand. Listen. A low, vibrating sound cut through the rain. Rachel paled. That's not what I think it is? It is. The ranger nodded. She didn't leave. She's circling, waiting. What the hell? Mike exploded. You said you knew these places. That everything was under control. Under control? Jack turned to him slowly. And you wanted a safe adventure? Like with that bear. Screw you. The TV host jumped up. Think you're so tough with your jungle? You're what? The ranger stepped towards him. Come on, show us your skills. Go out there and fight her. Like a real hero. The camera's there. But stop it. Rachel stepped between them. Both of you. Lord, don't you understand? We're in mortal danger. She's right, moaned Pete. We need to get out of here. Mr. Hawkins, you know the way, right? Jack shook his head slowly. In this downpour, everything's changed. The trails are washed out. The landmarks are gone. What do you mean, you don't know? Sarah shrieked. You're a local ranger. It's your job. My job is to look after animals, Jack snapped. Not to babysit city tourists who crawl into places where they don't belong. Mike laughed nervously. Great. Just great. Stranded in the middle of the jungle. Without connection. Without food. But with real predators. Jack winked at him. Isn't that what you wanted? Listen, Rachel tried to defuse the situation again. There must be some way out. Jack, maybe there are landmarks? Something permanent. The ranger looked thoughtfully at the river raging below. If we follow the stream, we'll eventually get to the coast. But it's a long way. What if we cross it? Mike pointed to the opposite bank. There seems to be a trail over there. It's dangerous. Jack shook his head. After the rain, the current is too strong. Besides what? Mike interrupted him. Afraid your plan will fall apart? Plan? The ranger narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Come on! The TV host stepped towards him. Think I didn't get it? You deliberately led us here. It was all planned. Mike, please, started Rachel. No, let him talk. Jack folded his arms. What else? And that I'm taking your wife away, Mike blurted. Yes, you heard right. We love each other, and she'll leave with me, and you'll stay here with your precious animals. A deathly silence fell. Even the rain seemed to quieten. Rachel, Jack slowly turned to his wife. Is that true? She stood, looking from her husband to her lover. 15 years of marriage against the promise of a new life. Fidelity against passion. Reality against a dream. Yes, she finally managed. Sorry, but I can't anymore. I'm suffocating. Is that so? Jack nodded, seemingly to himself. Well, the choice is yours. The river or the long way. I'm crossing the river, Mike cut in. Rachel, she took a step towards him, then turned to her husband. Jack, no need. He turned away. Just go. But keep in mind, I'm not dragging you back if something goes wrong. We'll manage. Mike snorted. Come on. I saw suitable trees for a raft a little upriver. Sarah and the rest of the crew, after a moment of hesitation, decided to stay with the ranger. Rachel gave her husband one last look, but he was demonstratively studying the map. Be careful, was all Jack said. He knew perfectly well that this part of the river wasn't just home to piranhas. The puma roared again in the jungle, but this time it sounded like a grim mockery. As if nature itself was warning, betrayal had its price. The river roared like a wounded beast. The tropical downpour had transformed the normally tranquil stream into a churning torrent, carrying uprooted trees and debris. Mike, soaked to the bone, struggled with a hastily tied bamboo raft, glancing at the opposite bank every so often. There, he straightened up, wiping the sweat from his brow. Almost ready. All that's left is Mike. Rachel nervously tugged at the sleeve of her soaked blouse. Maybe we should go back after all? Can't you see what's happening to the river? Back to that again? He turned sharply, and irritation flashed in his eyes. It's all Jack this, Jack that. How much longer? Think I don't see how you look back every 5 minutes? Afraid your precious husband is watching us. That's not it. Rachel raised her voice. I've lived on this island for 15 years. I've seen what happens to those who underestimate the rivers during the rainy season. Mike came up to her, taking her shoulders. Listen to me, baby. Remember what I promised you. Miami, an apartment with an ocean view, your own TV show. We'll be stars. Isn't that what you dreamed of when you were studying to be a nurse? She hesitated. Yes, I dreamed of it. But no buts. He pulled her closer. You're Jack. He's a nice guy, I won't deny it. But he's stuck here in this goddamn jungle. And you deserve better. You said yourself you were suffocating here, that you were tired of just being a ranger's wife. Rachel broke free from his embrace. I was wrong. Do you think I don't see how you tremble at every rustle? How you look away when Jack tells stories about real expeditions? What are you? Mike broke off when a puma's roar echoed again in the jungle. Damn, we need to hurry. Come on, get on the raft. Wait! She grabbed his hand. Answer me honestly. Do you really love me? Or am I just a good story for your show? Mike froze. A shadow of doubt flickered across his face, but he quickly put on his trademark smile. Don't talk such nonsense. Of course I love you. Why else would I come to this cursed jungle? For the ratings? She gave a bitter chuckle. I saw your messages with the producers. A romance with a ranger's wife is a great angle for a new season. Those were your words. Rachel, listen. No, you listen. She burst out. Jack's right, you're not real. Everything about you is fake. Your courage, your survival stories, even your feelings. And your husband is real, right? Mike narrowed his eyes angrily. The one who deliberately led us to the most dangerous part of the island? Who clearly planned something. Wake up, baby. He's a psycho. He's a warrior, Rachel said quietly. And you just play war in front of the cameras. Mike raised his hand, but restrained himself. You know what? Screw it. I'm giving you one last chance. Either you get on this damned raft now, or another rumble of thunder made him flinch. The river rose even higher, foaming and swirling at their feet. Fine. Rachel slowly approached the raft. But when we get to the shore, She didn't get to finish her sentence. The log beneath her feet cracked. The raft tilted, scooping up water. The next moment, the muddy torrent was dragging them both, throwing them from side to side. Mike! She stretched out her hand in despair. Help me! He looked at her for an eternity. Images flashed through his mind. Interviews on the main channels, million-dollar contracts, crowds of adoring fans, and amidst all this sparkle, a wet, desperately struggling woman who'd believed his lies. Sorry, baby, he muttered through his teeth. Every man for himself. With those words, he pushed her away and swam towards the shore, leaving Rachel to fight the current. How could you? Her cry echoed over the river. I loved you. I believed you. The water covered her head. In those last seconds, her whole life flashed before her. Jack, wounded, but unbroken, in the hospital ward. His eyes when he first brought her to the island. Their small celebrations, quiet evenings on the porch. His silent, but so reliable love. Lord, she thought, how could I not appreciate it? Suddenly, something heavy splashed next to her. Through the murky water, she saw a long pole tied to a liana. Hold on. Jack's voice cut through the sound of the river. I'm here. He stood on the bank, skillfully maneuvering a makeshift rescue rope. His face was contorted with effort, but his eyes burned with the determination of a man who wasn't used to retreat. Jack, Rachel whispered, when he dragged her onto the bank. You were watching us? You? No. He wrapped his jacket around her. The river. I knew it would be dangerous today. And you were always free to choose your path. On the opposite bank, Mike had just climbed out of the water. He stood there, breathing heavily, but a victorious smirk was already spreading across his face. Hey, losers! He yelled across the river. How do you like that plot twist? Mike Ranger survives extreme conditions again. It'll be the hit of the season. Oh, my lord. Rachel shook her head. How could I have been so blind? He's just... Her words were cut off by a horrible scream. From the crown of a tree hanging over the river, a massive shadow darted out. A giant anaconda, as thick as a log, fell on Mike, knocking him off his feet. Help! His cry was full of genuine terror. Please, I don't want to die, Jack. Rachel gripped her husband's hand. Do something. Nature takes care of things herself. He watched calmly as the huge snake dragged its victim into the undergrowth. Everyone gets what they deserve. Mike's screams gradually subsided, swallowed up by the sounds of the jungle. 1 month later, Rachel sat on the porch of their cabin, watching the sunset over the jungle. On the small table in front of her lay a signed set of divorce papers. You know, she ran a finger along the edge of the paper. I really thought I was suffocating here, that I needed a different life, and now. Jack stood leaning against the railing, his silhouette clearly outlined against the crimson sky. Now I understand that it wasn't about the island. It's just, I stopped seeing the beauty in simple things. In our evenings on the porch, in your stories about the jungle, in how you take care of this place. Some things you need to lose to understand their worth. He turned to her. But sometimes the price of that understanding is too high. A car beeped below. The taxi had arrived. Rachel rose, her hand trembling, touching the doorknob. You knew, didn't you? You knew from the beginning that he would betray me. I only knew one thing. Jack looked her in the eye. In the jungle, not the strongest, not the smartest survives. The one who is true to their nature survives. And me? Her voice trembled. What's my nature? That's for you to decide. He turned away to the jungle. It was always your decision. She walked down the familiar path for the last time, got into the taxi without looking back, and Jack remained standing on the porch when his phone rang. Hello. Yes, it's Hawkins. An offer to become the new host of Wild Adventures? He smirked, looking at the darkening jungle. You know, I already have a show, a real one, and it's not for cameras. Night fell on Isla Verde. Somewhere deep in Los Diablos, night birds called out, greeting their guardian. The jungle was calling him, and he knew this was his home. This was his truth.